We've all been living under this narrative, right? This idea of never-ending housing crisis here in Dallas, prices just soaring, finding a place felt impossible.
Absolutely. It's been the dominant story for years now.
But then a Newsweek article really made me pause. It said Texas actually has 20% more active housing listings now than back in March 2019, pre-pandemic levels.
Right. While nationally, listings are down 20%.
Yeah, that's a huge difference, isn't it? So, okay, let's really try to unpack what that actually means for us here.
It's fascinating because it just seems to fly in the face of that perception of, extreme scarcity we've had in Dallas and really across Texas.
Right.
This big jump in available homes. It suggests maybe a real shift in the market supply dynamics. It definitely makes you wonder why that feeling of crisis is still so strong if the data is pointing somewhere else.
Exactly. So, is that story we've been told, the one about a desperate housing shortage in Dallas, is it starting to change? Could we, I don't know, even be getting close to saturation?
That's the core question, isn't it?
That's the deep dive for today. We've pulled together some really interesting sources. We've got the city of Dallas's own Dallas Housing Policy 2033 plan.
Mm-hmm.
There's a pretty active Reddit discussion from our Dallas homeowners talking about affordable housing.
Oh, those can be lively.
Yeah, tell me about it. Then there's that Newsweek article on unsold homes, a market update from ProperStar, and an opinion piece from the Dallas Morning News about Dallas's growing pains.
What a mix.
So whether you own a home, maybe you're trying to buy one, or you're just interested in what's shaping the city's economy, this is definitely for you. Our goal here is to sift through all this info and see if that narrative of just constant scarcity in Dallas might actually be, well, shifting.
It's a really crucial starting point because if Newsweek's data shows this big increase in homes available in Texas, and presumably that includes Dallas,
Right.
why do so many of us still feel like we're stuck in a housing crisis? What's the disconnect there?
Well, let's dig into that supply idea first. That Newsweek piece, it clearly lays out the jump in Texas listings compared to before the pandemic.
Yeah.
But then you look at that Our Dallas Reddit thread, you see homeowners expressing some real anxiety about, like, increased density.
Okay.
One user, John Hosey 1984, put it pretty bluntly, "My home is my most valuable asset. To devalue it puts at risk all the work I've done to carve out my own little life."
Wow, yeah. That's potent.
It really is, and it makes you think, okay, overall listings might be up, but maybe there's still this concern among some folks about an oversupply of certain kinds of housing or development happening right in their backyard.
That's a really insightful point. That the type of housing and crucially the location of that increased inventory, those are likely key factors.
Mm-hmm.
Existing homeowners, understandably, have a vested interest in their property values, the character of their neighborhood. So just seeing more listings citywide might not calm their nerves if the new stuff feels like a threat.
It's such an interesting tension because then you look at this city's plan, the Dallas Housing Policy 2033,
Right.
and a major goal is explicitly boosting housing production all across the city. They even have these SMARTY goals under Pillar 2, citywide production.
SMARTY goals. Okay, specific, measurable.
Exactly. Specific, measurable targets for increasing housing opportunities. So the city clearly sees a need, or at least plans, to increase the housing stock significantly.
Yeah, the policy framework is definitely geared towards expanding housing options. But like we see on Reddit, that ambition can clash with what current residents want or fear.
Yeah.
It just highlights that simply adding more units, isn't the whole story, what kind of development and where it goes. That's a huge part of the conversation.
And this ties right into the whole affordability mess, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
The Newsweek article quotes Nadia Gessler making exactly that point. Even with supply rising in Texas, the affordability crisis is still very much here. So more homes on Zillow doesn't automatically mean homes people can actually afford to buy.
That's such a vital distinction. I mean, yes, basic economics says more supply can push prices down if demand holds steady.
Right.
But in a market like Dallas with strong growth, ongoing demand, plus things like interest rates, though that's not our main focus today, it can easily counteract that effect. Affordability remains elusive.
And that Reddit thread, wow, it really dives into this. There's this whole debate about what affordable housing even means.
Oh, yeah.
Some people seem to equate it strictly with, like, government-subsidized projects, but others, like one user, Iradalutra, they talk about wanting attainable housing, something that fits a middle-class budget, but also, crucially, is in a low-crime area.
Attainable housing, that's a good phrase.
It is, and it shows their different views on what the real problem is.
That desire for attainable housing in, let's say, desirable areas, that really gets to a core challenge. It's not just about the total number of units.
Right.
It's having the right kind of units in the right places at prices that, a broader range of working people can actually manage.
And the city's housing policy, the 2033 document, it touches on this too. It talks about equity, reducing disparities in housing opportunities.
Does it give specifics?
Yeah, it actually presents data showing these pretty big gaps in homeownership rates and median home values between different racial and ethnic groups in Dallas. So the equity piece is definitely part of their stated focus.
So it's acknowledged in the policy, at least.
Okay, so let's recap slightly. We're seeing potentially more houses overall, but affordability is still a massive hurdle, and there's disagreement about what kind of housing is needed and where it should go.
Yep, that sums it up pretty well.
Now, what about signals that maybe this super intense market we've lived through is finally starting to cool off? Could we actually be looking at a market correction?
Well, the ProperStar market update, it was from June 2023, so a little while back, but it gave some national clues.
Okay.
They saw a dip in existing home sales nationally back in April 23, and even a slight decrease in median prices across the U.S. And they also noted more homes coming onto the market nationally and fewer bidding wars. Those are usually signs of a market that's, cooling down a bit.
Fewer bidding wars. That definitely sounds like a change from the peak frenzy.
For sure.
But the Newsweek piece adds a Texas twist, right? Joel Berners suggested that, yeah, Texas sales slowed a bit, but our state was actually doing better than the national average.
Right, he linked that resilience to our strong population growth.
Which makes sense. People are still moving here in droves.
Yeah.
But crucially, he also mentioned that increased inventory in Texas that we started with.
Exactly. Berners' point suggests this kind of regional difference. National trends might point one way, but Texas, fueled by growth, seems to have some insulation.
Oh,
But yeah, the fact that inventory is still rising here, even in this relatively stronger market, that could be an early sign, maybe, that the superheated demand we saw is starting to moderate, supply catching up, perhaps.
maybe. And then there's Dallas Cothram's opinion piece in the DMN. He had this interesting take on Dallas-ites.
Oh, yeah. What was that?
He sort of observed that we often seem to dislike both the problems like traffic or lack of density and the proposed solutions like more development.
Huh. That sounds about right. The not in my backyard syndrome, maybe.
Kind of. It makes you wonder if this local resistance to building more, even if it could eventually help with supply and maybe affordability, does that resistance actually end up prolonging the perception of a shortage?
That's a really sharp observation from Cothram. Local sentiment, politics, they absolutely shape how fast and what kind of development happens. If there's strong pushback against density or new construction, yeah, it could definitely slow down the market's ability to adjust, even if inventory numbers are ticking up. It complicates things.
Okay, this leads us to maybe more, let's say, provocative idea.
Yeah.
We started asking if the whole housing crisis narrative might be easing.
Right.
Could it be that this narrative, even if the supply numbers are changing, is sort of being kept alive, perhaps for specific reasons?
That's a sensitive question, but a valid one to explore based on the inputs. The city's own housing policy, the 2033 doc. Yeah.
It talks about reducing barriers for developers, both nonprofit and for-profit, and encouraging private investment.
Okay.
So the system is set up where ongoing development is seen as a key goal. And you could argue that a perception of continued high demand and limited supply, well, that might look beneficial for attracting that investment, right? Keeps the wheels turning.
And thinking back to that Reddit thread again, those homeowners, like non-congruent saying their home is their biggest asset.
Yeah, the nest egg concern.
Right. Anything seen as lowering home values gets instant opposition. So, could it be that a narrative of scarcity helps keep prices high, which obviously benefits sellers, and maybe developers too, even if the number of homes for sale is actually going up?
Look, the homeowner concerns about protecting property values are definitely real, as we saw on Reddit. That creates a dynamic. And yes, a perception of scarcity tends to support higher prices, benefiting sellers and potentially developers building new high-value properties. But, it's crucial not to oversimplify.
The market is incredibly complex. Interest rates, jobs, migration, construction costs. Tons of factors are at play. Attributing everything just to a manipulated narrative is probably going too far based on these sources. It seems more like an alignment of certain interests.
But it does make you think about things like government subsidies or incentives. The sources don't list specific programs,
No, not in detail.
but that 2033 policies talk about collaboration, identifying resources. It suggests financial tools could be used to encourage development, maybe justified by the idea that a shortage persists.
That's plausible. Government policies and financial incentives absolutely shape the market. The city policies focus on partnerships and finding resources. It implies that tools like subsidies or tax breaks could be part of the strategy to boost certain kinds of housing.
Okay, let's zoom out a bit. What about the bigger picture, long term? Is this potential inventory increase just a blip, or could it be a more lasting shift?
Well, the Newsweek article did offer a more optimistic long view from some experts. They basically believe Texas's strong population growth and economic fundamentals will keep things relatively balanced in the long run. The underlying demand, they argue, isn't going away.
So growth continues to be the key driver.
Seems to be the prevailing thought. And Dallas Cothram, in his DMN piece, also hit on that broader regional growth. He mentioned North Texas potentially becoming the third biggest region in the U.S.
Wow.
Yeah. And his point was we need to kind of embrace that growth, find solutions proactively. It puts the housing market trends into that larger context of ongoing expansion.
So the demand side is likely to stay strong long term, even if supply fluctuates.
That seems to be the consensus from these perspectives. And, the Proper Star update emphasized staying plugged into local market insights, which just reinforces that the Dallas situation specifically needs careful watching. It's not just about national trends.
Okay, so putting it all together, it's a really interesting kind of contradictory picture, isn't it?
It really is.
We're seeing this evidence, like from Newsweek, of more housing inventory in Texas, potentially including Dallas, which pushes back against that old scarcity narrative.
Right. The numbers suggest some easing there.
Yet, affordability is still a huge problem, a really persistent one.
Absolutely critical point.
We're seeing some signs of a national market cool down. Maybe Texas is a bit more resilient because of growth, but even here, inventory is up.
Nuances everywhere.
And while the city has plans to boost housing production, there's still that local resistance to development we talked about.
Yep, the community pushback factor.
So that question we started with, is the Dallas housing market getting close to saturation? Is the housing crisis narrative still the right way to frame it? It's definitely not a simple yes or no answer, is it?
Not at all. The sources paint a really nuanced picture. The inventory rise suggests maybe the extreme scarcity phase is lessening. But the affordability crunch shows that just having more units isn't the magic bullet. And those differing opinions in the community, on Reddit and likely elsewhere, they highlight this constant balancing act between growth, affordability, and homeowner concerns.
Yeah.
So while the long-term outlook seems tied to our region's growth, the near future, it probably involves more adjustment, more debate about the best way forward.
So here's maybe the final thought for you listening right now. Given everything we've discussed, the increased inventory here, but the persistent affordability issues, the debates about development, what factors do you think will be the biggest drivers for the Dallas housing market in the next few years?
That's a good question to leave people with.
Should the focus maybe shift, less on just pumping out any supply, and more towards directly tackling affordability through different strategies? It really feels like understanding these dynamics is more critical than ever now, whether you're making your own housing choices or just thinking about the city's future. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.